This week on football, Hamzad banger for Chippenham. Rashford finally has freedom. Keshi falls to the floor after an eye-watering strike.
And the shot, oh, what a goal! Absolutely incredible!
Aaron Ramsey goads the Stoke fans 15 years after his horror injury. 19-year-old goalkeeper seals it against Champions League side Lille. And Fred. Hello everybody, welcome to This Week on Football. It is me, Alex. Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, then what are you doing? Do it now. If you want to like the video, go ahead, like the video. It really helps me. If not, don't. I'm really angry this week, and I'll tell you why in a second. I've got my team of the week coming up. I've got my weekend treble as well, where I win you money. Quickly, the reason why I'm angry is Jadon Sancho. I feel like I speak about him way too much, and I speak about Marcus Rashford way too much. But as a Man United fan, it's hard not to get really worked up. Marcus Rashford made his debut for Aston Villa this week. He decided to put in a little cameo performance, which wound me up, and I'll talk about that later as well. But worse, he posted on Instagram after, and Jadon Sancho in the comments writes freedom. What is Jadon Sancho's problem? Genuinely. You played for us, you didn't show any heart, you gave nothing, you didn't run, neither of you did actually, Marcus Rashford as well, and now you're running around with zero accountability, the biggest ego in football, thinking yourself, what, a Salah, a Messi? You're nowhere near those levels. You weren't good enough at Man United. We pushed you out. Chelsea took you and gave you a chance. And actually the Chelsea fans deserve better as well because you've been awful. You've been bang average. There was me a couple of weeks ago going very, very easy on this lad because at the end of the day, he's a young lad. We don't know him. We don't know who he is. We might be suffering from something that we're not sure about. But now I think this just opens yourself up. You've gone too far. You've gone and basically blamed the club. And what this does is it's not as little and small as you might think. Saying freedom, what it suggests is Manchester United is a jail, a prison, a bad place to go for players. The PR disaster for Man United is massive actually here. And that shouldn't go unnoticed. The club has to do something about it. But as far as Jadon Sancho is concerned, who do you think you are? The ego of Messi or Salah with the ability of a championship level player. I'm not saying Jadon Sancho can't turn in a decent performance every now and then. And actually, I thought he was picking up a bit of form at Chelsea. But let's have a look at your last 11 games, Jadon. Brentford, nothing. Everton, nothing. Fulham, nothing. Ipswich, nothing. Palace, you got an assist. Well done. Morecambe, nothing. Bournemouth, nothing. Wolves, nothing. Man City, nothing. West Ham, nothing. Brighton, nothing. I don't think this is a guy who has any grounds to start speaking and talking. And do you know what? It's one of those things where Marcus Rashford actually, unfortunately, gets lumped into this group because I don't think Marcus Rashford is a bad guy. There's talks about what he's like in the training and with managers and with the players and whatever. We don't know. As a person, I don't think he's a bad guy. He clearly loves Man United. But unfortunately, when he's surrounding himself with players like this, it's like the kid in class that tries to bring you down because he's failing. Jadon Sancho is nowhere near the level of Marcus Rashford. And that's the sad thing, that Marcus Rashford is lumped into this group when he's twice the player that Jadon Sancho is. And Chelsea fans, in fact, will see right through Jadon Sancho. And it's not going to take long because they're already a little bit of murmuring. They backed him when he came and they loved it because they loved sticking it to the Man United fans. And fair enough, we'd probably do the same thing to you. But at the end of the day, Jadon Sancho has not performed for Manchester United. Dortmund didn't want to keep him. And Chelsea, it's already looking like he's not going to last there either. They have to sign him. He's got a £25 million obligatory transfer over to Chelsea at the end of the season. And we're still paying his wages at the moment. The professionalism is absolutely zero. self-awareness is absolute naught, and I think it's just another thing. Look, I'm not the sort of person who hates on players. I try to be as positive and proactive and believing in players despite their form as anyone. My whole vibe is I want you to do well if you play for my club, and I'm going to take your personality, your own individual kind of characteristics into account when it comes to playing football. If you're in bad form, it might be due to something else, personal circumstances. Everybody's human. But what Jadon Sancho has done has opened himself up completely, not just to Man United fans, not just to Chelsea fans, but to football fans in general, because everybody sees who he is now. Everybody sees that he's a guy who won't take accountability, has zero self-awareness, tries to bring players down around him, an overall nuisance in the dressing room, somebody who was given multiple chances and still disrespects the club that gave him those chances. And say what you want, Chelsea fans, because I've had this discussion for a number of months now. They've been backing him, and fair enough, he's your player. But now you've got to see, this is a guy who's trouble, and he doesn't belong at top level football. And as much as his ego might think that he does, he doesn't. And that is the square root of it, in my opinion. Look, there's two sides of the coin. Obviously, Man United are in a bad place, and Man United as a football club are not conducting themselves in the best way at all. Transfers, managers, players, the staff, pretty much everyone, including the fans now, feels let down by Manchester United as a football club, and they've got to act quick. When I say this is a PR disaster, it is a PR disaster. Anybody who is a young footballer, an aspiring player to play at the top level, who might think about coming to Manchester United, will see the absolute nightmare that it has been for players of late. And now they get to read it. They get proof. They get comments like freedom, like Manchester United is a prison. We already know this, but to have it confirmed by a top level player is a disaster, like I said. And I actually think Man United need to come down really, really hard on Jadon Sancho. The fact that we're still paying part of his wages is a disgrace. He should be fined those until the end of the season, in my opinion. But the club's not innocent. And we've had similar stories. Romelu Lukaku said it was Inter that pulled him out of the SHIT. Dan James said he never felt at home and he didn't feel right. Alexis Sanchez wanted to return after his first training session back to Arsenal. And obviously now you've got Sancho. Look, I think Rashford's a top player. I think he's got the ability to go and be a world-class player. He's just maybe not at the right club. Jadon Sancho is the opposite end of that and doesn't belong at a top club. And the fact that he's trying to drag him down with him, like I say, it's the kid at the back of the class who is always going to fail, was never going to amount to anything, and he's been sat next to the kid who's actually got a bright future but quiet, and he's trying to bring him down. I don't rate it at all. Marcus Rashford deserves a lot more, and I think he deserves better friends than that as well. Let's be positive. This week, I did a little video, and that video got a little bit of traction, and quite a few people started following me, and I thought, you know what? Let's do a little bit of fan listener interaction. I say fan interaction, not fan of me, fan of other clubs, by the way, and teams around the country and around the world. I asked people to get involved and to maybe give me some suggestions on what might be an interesting video. Shout out quickly to Nick, to Tim, to Martino, Leon, Fire as well. But the suggestion that I've taken this week is from a guy called WW. He's asked me to do a video on the rise of Mikel Arteta. Now, I love Mikel Arteta. I think he's a brilliant manager. Loved him as a player as well. Far from being an Arsenal fan, but I wanted to kind of do a deep dive and look into what made him who he is, and whether, you know, that opens up a little bit of insight into whether he is going to be really successful, particularly as manager of Arsenal. So I'm more going to title this that it's the rise and the fall, potentially, of Mikel Arteta, but here it is. Mikel Arteta was born in San Sebastian in sunny Spain. The very same year, so was a football club, an academy for the brightest and best talents in the area, Anti-Guku. Anti-Guku was out of the Basque Country, and 9 years after forming, Mikel Arteta would sign for them. At the club, Mikel befriended a young lad his age named Jabi. Jabi was also an aspiring young midfielder. The two developed a strong bond, and Xabi and Mikel learned a lot from each other. Until one day they were separated. Xabi had attracted interest from Real Sociedad's academy, and Mikel had attracted interest from the world-renowned La Masia Academy of Barcelona. Mikel and Xabi were separated, but this wasn't the end of the story for the two young friends. Mikel was introduced to new friends, a new environment, a new academy, and a new style of play. He met Victor and Andres. He was introduced to Xavi. The boys were kept in line by head coach Louis van Gaal and club captain Pep Guardiola. Mikel, unbeknownst to him, was surrounding himself with some of the best minds that football has ever seen. Mikel's education was growing, his style of play was developing, his vision, his creativity was fluid, but he was starting to falling behind the likes of Andres and Xavi in particular. La Masia was ruthless, the standards were higher than he's ever seen before, and quickly Mikel was falling out of favour. He struggled for first team football. Mikel was falling further and further behind, and it was decided by the club that he would be sent on loan to Paris. He joined French giants Paris Saint-Germain, and his football education would continue. He was introduced to his teammates, Nicolas, Mauricio, JJ, and a young boy named Ronald de Assis Moreira, or Ronaldinho for short. A young man also with high ambitions to play for Barcelona. PSG gave Mikel Arteta glowing reviews as the Spaniard decided to return to Barcelona. Meanwhile, the Spanish giants had other plans. Mikel was moving to Glasgow. In a game at Ibrox between Rangers and Paris Saint-Germain, the Glasgow side decided they'd seen more than enough and must sign Mikel Arteta. Alex McLeish okayed the deal, Rangers' bid of £6 million was accepted, and Mikel Arteta left the streets of Paris, the sunny beaches of Spain, and he moved to East Dunbartonshire. Mikel Arteta was a Rangers player. Little did he know this would be the making of him, as a person, a player, and as a manager. Full throttle, tough tackling, a league that took no prisoners. Mikel Arteta had to learn fast, and he did. Arteta scored in his Old Firm debut and quickly became a fan favourite, winning the treble with Rangers in 2003. He perfectly demonstrated his confidence, his temperament, his composure in the biggest moments when he slotted away a penalty in the dying seconds to secure the treble and the league title for Rangers. Despite all this, it was Real Sociedad who decided to bring Mikel home. The Spanish club made a move and Rangers accepted. Mikel was heading home. It was the dream scenario. Mikel Arteta and Xabi reunited childhood friends at the same club. That was until Liverpool. Liverpool came knocking and Xabi Alonso moved all the way to Merseyside before Mikel Arteta even touched the Zubieta grass. The move fell off and Arteta yearned for pastures new. Merseyside was calling him too. Everton manager at the time, David Moyes, believed that Mikel Arteta was exactly what his Everton side was missing after the departure of Thomas Gravesen to Real Madrid. And there they were, Mikel and Xabi, childhood friends, now on the opposite sides, red and blue of Merseyside. Best of friends and now bitter rivals. Mikel's football education was already an eclectic mix of Spanish intellect, Parisian power, Brazilian flair and British physicality. At 25, Arteta became Everton's Player of the Year, and at 29, he felt like he'd done all he can for the Toffees. The England national team at this point were desperate. They were looking for a midfielder with composure, with Spanish flair, but creativity and fluid in their style of play. The England team were looking at Mikel. England manager Fabio Capello made a move, and Arteta was interested. Mikel would play for England. This was until FIFA said no. Mikel stated he almost went to war with the international football governing body, but FIFA were adamant he was not to play. Arsene Wenger, however, also needed a midfielder, and Mikel Arteta was who he had his eye on. The Spaniard joined Arsenal in 2011 on a 4-year deal. Arteta settled into life at Arsenal and was enjoying a day off one day when his phone rang.
Mikel, I need information.
It was Guardiola. Pep had called his former teammate ahead of his Barcelona side's Champions League semi-final clash with Mikel's fellow Premier League outfit, Chelsea.
Tell me everything you know.
This conversation would turn out to be important, more important than Mikel knew. Arteta then went on to help Arsenal to what was his first silverware at the club after winning the FA Cup in 2014. Mikel's mentality and leadership qualities didn't go unnoticed, and Arsenal made him club captain the following season. This was to be the beginning of the end, however, for Arteta at Arsenal, and despite some good performances, he announced his retirement. Arteta had 3 options upon his retirement. He was offered to lead the Arsenal Academy by Arsene Wenger. He could join former teammate Mauricio Pochettino and his staff at Tottenham. Or he could join Pep Guardiola's coaching team at Manchester City. On July 3rd, 2016, the decision was made and Arteta was appointed Manchester City assistant manager. That Barcelona connection had remained, and Pep had always respected Mikel's football intellect ever since that fateful phone call. Fast forward 3 years and Arsene Wenger's Arsenal were struggling. They'd become stale. The club finally took a difficult decision and parted ways with the Frenchman. Arsene Wenger was no more, and a young Spanish manager was on their list, Unai Emery. Things got worse for Arsenal under Emery, and this only highlighted Arteta's success. At Manchester City, he won titles, and Pep Guardiola's management style had rubbed off. The world was looking for a new, young manager, and Mikel Arteta was the name on everyone's lips. It was time for Mikel to go it alone. In 2019, Mikel Arteta was named Arsenal head coach. He signed on an initial 4-year deal, and the club was expecting big things. The mission: to return Arsenal back to Premier League champions. The wealth of knowledge he had acquired was huge. He had learned from the very best, but it was time to curate his own style of play. He believed that the club had lost direction. He said he didn't want players to shirk responsibility. I want people to take responsibility for their jobs. I want people who deliver passion and energy in the football club. Anyone who doesn't buy into this or that has a negative effect, it's not good enough for this environment or this culture. Arteta's style of play has propelled Arsenal from top 4 contenders to title challengers, despite relative success winning the Community Shield and the FA Cup and returning Arsenal to the Champions League. Questions still remain over Arteta's capacity to maintain a season-long title-winning campaign. 8 Premier League Manager of the Month awards haven't been enough to see Mikel Arteta's Arsenal side get over the line. Now entering his 6th year in charge, is it time that Mikel Arteta won the Premier League? And if so, what happens if he doesn't? Now, I'm a big fan of Mikel Arteta. I think what he's done is very underrated. I do think what he has achieved with this Arsenal side is a lot harder than it first appears. Winning a title, going head-to-head with arguably one of the best teams that the Premier League's ever seen. It's a team that was losing by a point. It's a 100 points a season team. It's not as easy as just walking in and competing for the league. You need to have mental strength. You need to have a core of top world-class players. And I think when Jurgen Klopp came in, he was given that. He had Van Dijk, he had Mo Salah, he had Sadio Mane, and he had a top goalkeeper in Alisson. And I think the rest can be put together. And I think Arsenal have put that together. And I think Mikel Arteta has given it a real good go. What they do need now is a top-class centre-forward, a striker, someone who's going to go and get them 20 and 30 goals a season. They need a Mo Salah. They need a winger who's going to stay fit and create. Because Saka, as great as he is, all that pressure and all that responsibility on him to provide all the goals, it's not going to be enough to see this Arsenal side finally overturn that Man City side. And look at Liverpool this season. They've needed Mo Salah. Every team that wins the Premier League, they need someone on a massive run. And it's hard to find a player in that Arsenal side who's going to do that. It's time that Arsenal bought a striker. It's time that Mikel Arteta spent the money right. And I think this season, if it doesn't go his way, he's got one more for me. I think a lot of people disagree. A lot of people think this is his time, and if he doesn't win anything this season, then he's failed. For me, I think for him to even get them challenging from where they were, you got to think about under Emery, where they were, that Arsenal side. It was not just stale, as I mentioned, it was pretty laughable. They were becoming a laughingstock. They were also kind of becoming Tottenham, and that had to change. And I think Arteta has taken them from that, winning a trophy, but also getting them into the Champions League and competing with the best clubs in Europe. And I think Arteta has got a very good argument to say he's got one of the best, probably top 5 teams in the world at the moment. But it's time they won a title. So I agree. Right, let's do my team of the week. This is the part of the show where I tell you 1 to 11, the best players I've seen this week, but with a twist because I have to have seen them play 90 minutes. Live or nothing. Nothing from match of the day. No teams that I've seen highlights of. It has to be the full 90. Starting off in goal, Lawrence Vigouroux. I watched the Bristol City versus Swansea game, and while it wasn't a great game, I think the goalkeeper had a top performance. 3 unbelievable saves, by the way, for anyone who didn't watch the game, and kept a clean sheet. I thought he was fantastic. Chilean goalkeeper, by the way, never heard of him, never really done anything at the highest level, but this is his 2nd season in the Championship, and one of the first times I've seen him. I thought he was fantastic. Right back, Carl Norton. Yes, Carl Norton. I honestly can remember when he was coming through at Tottenham, and he's at Swansea still, and he's 36 years old, and he put in a fantastic performance. I thought he was brilliant. He stood up against Mehmeti, some very tricky players at Bristol City, and kept them quiet, kept a clean sheet. Thought he was fantastic. Centre-back, Nikola Katic. He is formerly of Rangers, and Rangers fans obviously have fond memories of him. He put in the performance of a lifetime in that FA Cup win over Liverpool. He lost a tooth. He came on after the game and was swearing on live TV. It was an all-round proper classic British performance from someone who he clearly gets what it means to be a Plymouth player, and you can see that he was brilliant. Alongside him is one of his centre-back teammates during that game. I think it was like a back 5 they were playing. Maxim Talavierov. He was playing his 2nd game for the club ever, and that's mad because the way he was acting. And I've watched Plymouth a couple of times this season, and I've not really been blown away by them. I think the quality overall has been poor. The fight has been pretty poor as well, and they were clearly well out of their depth in the Championship and look like they're going to go down. But what I saw from this lad was special. Like I said, 2nd game only for that club. He was celebrating every challenge, every small, tiny little win, a throw-in, a goal kick like it was a goal. It was brilliant to see. And I did think early on, I thought, you're going a little bit early, because he was celebrating like the 5th minute. But he saw it out, and he was brilliant. He was fantastic. And like I said, to come from Lask and play just your 2nd game in English football and put in that performance was brilliant. Left back Josh Tymon, he actually scored the winning goal for Swansea in that Bristol City game. Thought he was great all game, like I said, just like Carl Norton. Defended those wings really well and managed to get himself on the end of one and score the winner and keep a clean sheet. Thought he was brilliant. Just his 2nd season, I think, from Swansea to Stoke. He obviously came through at Stoke, 25 years old, played in the Premier League briefly. Still a decent future ahead of him. I thought he was really good, and yeah, like I said, took his goal really well. Centre midfield, John McGinn. John McGinn is a legend, mate. Honestly, what a legend. I absolutely love him. And from someone who doesn't support Villa or isn't Scottish, that's saying something, because every time I see him play, he doesn't give the ball away. He's got the biggest ass in football since Eden Hazard. He can run with the ball. He can dribble. He always makes smart decisions, and he's just got the personality. A big game doesn't faze him. Nothing phases him. I love watching John McGinn. He seems like a top bloke. His interaction with the supporters is brilliant as well. Apparently, he's always getting his mates and his friends and family in for all the games. So something sparks him every game. He gets up for it. And yeah, I thought he was brilliant this week. Alongside him, Darko JB. This is a guy who Leeds went and nabbed off Man City for £6 million. A 20-year-old now, but obviously when he joined a couple of years ago, that's a lot to pay for a young lad. Every time I've watched him, he's been really good. I think Leeds, if they get promoted this season, I fully believe they'll take him up, and I fully believe he can compete in the Premier League. He's physical, he's strong, he's really technical, and yeah, I think he's a top player in the making, genuinely. Finishing off that midfield, someone who's already a top player, Morgan Rogers. I think he is absolutely nailed on to be in Thomas Tuchel's first England squad. And whether he finds himself into the first 11, I don't know. But Morgan Rogers has been one of the revelations of the season. We saw a glimpse of it last season. We saw the potential he had. And look, this is a guy who maybe his numbers didn't suggest that at previous clubs coming through. Obviously, Middlesbrough most recently before Aston Villa. But now his numbers are showing. He has got 14 goal involvements in 33 games. And that's including his first season in Champions League football. A hat-trick in the Champions League is absolutely nuts for a debut season as well. He is one of the best players in the Premier League at taking the ball and moving with it. He knows that's his strength. He loves the fact that Unai Emery plays to his strength as well. He's talked about that recently in interviews, but Morgan Rogers is just coming on strength to strength. I think he will be in the team of the season. I do think Morgan Rogers has earned that right. Whether he is a centre midfielder or not, or whether he's an attacking midfielder, he is a disciplined guy. He gets back, he defends, he puts himself about, he's strong, he's physical, but one of the best dribblers in the league, genuinely is. Right wing, Jurgen Ekkelenkamp. He scored one of the weirdest goals I think I've ever seen this week. And if you haven't seen it already, you might need to look it up because I can't put it in because of copyright and stuff. And I don't want my channel to get deleted. But look up Jurgen Ekkelenkamp goal, because the goal he scored was, you know, when a goal is so good that you almost question whether they meant it. If you see this goal and you see it the first time, it doesn't look all that special. It's from a bit of distance, but then watch his technique, watch the way it moves. It's like Didier Drogba knuckleball. He kind of hits it with his instep, and the ball must move so much because the keeper's just stood there, tries to dive for it, but it's past him before he's even seen it and nestles in the bottom corner. It's one of the best goals I've seen all season, and and he actually did put a really good performance in. Played right wing. I think he wants to play a lot more centrally, apparently. But for Udinese, I thought he was really good. And that Napoli side's a really good side. And he got the crucial goal that equalised. We'll go left wing, Marcus Rashford. That cameo pissed me off. I'm not going to lie. Marcus Rashford, inside 5 seconds, did something that he's never done in the last 2 years for Manchester United. He contested and jumped for a header. It will anger so many Man United fans. It will make every single person who's backed that lad so mad, because that was a Marcus Rashford who was running. He was facing defenders up, running with the ball, taking it past players. He had confidence. And actually, it's not even confidence. And I think that's the worst thing. It was application. And it was something that we haven't seen as Man United fans for a long time. It's 2 years going on. We've seen him trot around the pitch, amble around. He'd occasionally run for something, occasionally try and take a player on and get nowhere, but would never challenge in the air for a ball. I mean, 1 in 50 balls in the air is he going to challenge for? And first game in, he's up there trying to head something about 6 feet off the ground as well. So shows he can do it. We know he can do it. He scored headers in that season where he went ballistic. So it's one that pisses us off. It's one that is going to get a lot of people, because Rashford is just proved that it's not about ability. It's not about confidence. It's about application and whether he's asked. And as much as you'll hear that he is a United fan, I do believe him. I don't think he's lying. But how can your actions speak louder than words, and his words are very loud and his actions are very quiet. So we'll see how he is. I think he'll absolutely rip it up at Aston Villa, because I think he has the potential to be a world-class talent. And that'll be even more frustrating, I think, for a lot of United fans. Striker, Josh Zirkzee. Think he's really good off the bench. Think he's absolutely awful when he starts. But I really like him. I like his personality. I like him with the ball at his feet. You give him the ball in a tight situation, he can hold it up, he can dribble. He gets into really great positions when arriving into the box late. It's something that I really looked forward to when we signed him for Bologna. I'd watched him quite a lot and I'd seen a lot of his goals are arriving late into the box and finishing. And he does do that, and he does offer that for Man United. We just need a run of games. We can't afford not to. It's at that point with Man United at the moment. There's no more beating around the bush. There's no more feeling sorry for players. There's no more giving players second and third chances. It's got to be now, and it's got to be now or never for me. And as much as it'll be horrible to say, for young players, if you're not at it, you got to go. And Højlund's going to be under scrutiny now, because Look, we can give a player a chance, but we can't afford to give you two. We're going to fall too far behind as a club. Liverpool are flying ahead of us. Man City are flying ahead of us. Arsenal are flying well ahead of us. And now you've got Newcastle, you've got Aston Villa, you've got Chelsea. We can't afford it anymore. We need players to come in and to hit the ground running. And if they're not doing that, that's that. And we have to be ruthless with it, I'm afraid. Right. Talking of ruthless, let's do my weekend treble. This weekend treble, when I say ruthless, it's ruthless. And this week was easy. It was coming in nice and easy. We had Atletico Madrid versus Real Madrid, both teams to score. That came in. And then Lille went and got beat at home to Le Havre, one of the worst teams in the league. And you can't legislate for that. And it's been happening a lot. Fortunately, we're still £68 up in profit this year, which is actually still pretty massive. So stick with me. We're okay. This week's picks, I've gone Arsenal over 1.5 goals against Leicester. I've gone Aston Villa versus Ipswich over 2.5 goals. And I've gone for PSG to score over 1.5 goals against Toulouse. £10 on, gets £28.29 back. And it's about time we got on a decent streak. We had a great streak at the start of the season. We've really struggled of late. And some of the things, like I said, Barcelona got me beat. Benfica got me beat. And now this, I mean, Lille at home to Le Havre. Honestly, Le Havre had won, I think, one game all season away from home. And they turn up at Lille, who are flying, by the way, who have been brilliant this season, and go and beat them. I don't know. Either way, stick with me. I'll be back next week, next Wednesday, and every Wednesday until the end of the season. I will be less angry, I promise. Don't take my anger with you this week. Stay cool, stay calm, stay collected, and enjoy the football. If you haven't subscribed, now is your chance. And if you haven't liked, well, it's the end of the video, so you have to do it now. Bye.